quite simple. What else? Session management. Okay, how random are your sessions? Okay. If you're in a .NET application, what information is stored in view state? A lot of times people don't encrypt view state. You view the view state and you'd be surprised all the information you have in there. Yeah, I've seen usernames, passwords, everything stored in view state. Insecure cryptographic storage. All right. Now this could be taken up many different ways. All right. App scanner, autocode scanner, pen testing. But what about, say, how are you handling your backup tapes? All right. And that's when, our whole risk assessment comes into place. All right. App scanners do not find almost no insecure cryptographic storage. What it may find is access to, say, a config file from a specific type of third-party application. And if you could download that and view the configuration files. There was one time I actually found the encryption key in a config file. Autocode scanning. Basically, the auto scanners, it's going to find out how you're storing your information. If you're exporting all your data, to the hard drive, what's going to be on that hard drive? Is that data on the hard drive encrypted? Okay? Because a lot of times, if it isn't, somebody breaks in or there's a directory traversal and an attack, you can compromise that data and it's pretty much in the clear. Other things you may have seen out there is connections into Access databases. For some reason, some people feel the need to use Access on the internet. I have no clue why. I really don't. I actually found one last week and had fun because guess what? All they did was MD5 all the passwords and store it in a table in Access. I mean, Chris and I had access in like, 15 minutes. Pen testing. All right, just like the app scanner, pen testing is going to find minimal information on insecure cryptographic storage because it's basically going to be the same thing. It's going to be the output from the scanner. What are the possible files? You'll walk through the application. You'll look, see where all the different links go. What's behind that link? What's in a PDF? But if you go through the whole pen testing process, sometimes it's worth it to actually open the PDF, not just go, oh, it's a PDF, I'm not going to look at it. Because we've looked at PDFs before on servers. One was a copy of a pen test report. Okay? So that would be a problem. And all it did was use a PDF, it used a PDF password. So PDF passwords, you know as well as I do, just put it on the other laptop and let it crank away and brute force it. Other ones we found credit reports in clear text. Okay? And that comes down to file access also, which we'll be getting into in a minute. And these are things you want to pay attention to. Why? What's going on nowadays? Everybody's getting compromised. How many sites are hacked on a weekly basis and how many millions of people? I think the last record was over 300 million people have had their credit information stolen over the past 3 years. So that's pretty much the population of the United States.
What did you use to crack the password?
Elcomsoft makes a whole suite of tools. Yeah, and it pretty much ties into rainbow tables. So if you have a rainbow table, you can tie it right in and it'll pretty much brute force or do whatever type of attack you need to do. Any questions so far? Insecure communications. What do we mean by insecure communications? All right, insecure communications is pretty much a full 360 scope. We're not just talking over port 80 because not every application is an external application. A lot of applications that are compromised are internal applications. Okay, so what are you looking for? how do you log into, say, how do you log into your Exchange server or your OWA server? Okay, that's the perfect example. Is the are both port 80 and 443 open? So can you bypass it or force people to bypass it? Because if they're using basic authentication or if they're using NTLM, it's pretty much over and done with pretty quickly. Basic, you'll probably, it's a 1, 2, 3 process. Other things you want to look at: how's the information being transmitted, from the database to the web server? Is it encrypted from the database to the web server, or is it in the open? A lot of times that's a good way to capture credentials from an internal point of view. All right, and that's why, from my experience, the best approach to this whole process is not just saying, okay, I'm going to go in and do an app assessment. It's like, I want to do an everything assessment. I want to combine all the network devices that attach to that application. I want to hit all the services, DNS services, mail services. Reason being, how many of you have ever tested a medical application? Okay? You hit a medical application, here's something that's going to shock you. Or, like, say you go and get your MRI or whatever tomorrow. Guess how they transfer that information? A lot of times you'll see it over SMTP. So from doctor to doctor, it's going SMTP over the internet. All right, failure to restrict URL access. We were going back to this before. A lot of times, what are the different purposes of this? Okay, your mail servers. All right, if you're using Microsoft Exchange, it's always a /exchange. Okay, can you go beyond that? Can you put /exchange Tom Ryan and get access to my email? Because the security features aren't configured properly. Can you go directly to an email without logging in? And that's the whole part. And the other problem with that is all system cache. Okay? How many of you used VeriSign before? VeriSign tokens for authentication. All right, one little trick with VeriSign tokens, it always goes to a file called sophia.exe. All right, stored in your browser cache. All right, guess what's in that browser cache file? The exe file is not an exe file in your browser cache. If you were to view that, your username will be in there, and your password's in there in a hidden field. Okay, and that's stored in your browser. All right, so if somebody compromises that, the only thing left is to find out who you are and compromise your token. And then you pretty much have complete access. Other examples are restricted URL access when I was talking about credit reports before. If you're in the banking industry and you're doing loans, and I don't know how many people will be doing that much longer, but if you're doing loans, it's like, if you're doing loans, a lot of times you'll have a process where you're going to write the salesman will write a credit report to the file server after filling out an online form, and it's stored on that file server. All right? Do you have a process of actually deleting that stuff randomly? What is your process for, what's the process for actually naming the files? Okay, a lot of times you'll go in and you'll find this stuff sequentially. Perfect example of that would be banks. Okay, you go into banks. How do you get your checks back nowadays?